How are you? My name is Joseph Clifford. Before we start, I just want to wish each and every one of you the very best of health. That extends to your family, your extended family and friends. We're living in unprecedented times, and I just want to wish you all the very best of health and well-being. Very important. So, what we're going to do today is a webinar. Now, what this is a very small piece of the cut course. And who I am, well, I've worked as a cut person. I'm in my 16th year now, and I've developed and designed programs for various international organizations, including IMAF, International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, ABA, and various other. Now, what this is teaching you how to break down and evaluate yourself, or have somebody else evaluate you, or use this as a tool for evaluating other. If you're setting up a system in your own country, anything that helps you up your game, well, then it helps, and then sharing it with others, it helps them up their game. In other words, in terms of your performance. So what we're going to cover today are task orientated outcomes in corner care. Now, there are three key areas to where we work as cut people, and we're going to cover that now in the next slide. But it's a process of being able to break things down and have a look at your overall performance and use a scoring system which will give you some kind of feedback as to where your strengths are and where your weaknesses may lie and how to improve those. Okay, so that's what this is about. So let's move on to the next slide. So, performance analysis. Three key areas for assessment. Back of house, which is here, ringside, which is here, and corner care. So basically what we're going to do is break down one of these because we haven't got time to cover them all. And again, this is just a snippet of the cut course. And again, these were designed to help cut people break down the performance in a positive way with peers and get constructive feedback in terms of them being able to up their game. So three key areas. Back of house. Okay, so that's the picture on your left hand side. So back of house, it's a key area because why is that? Because it's force contact with the athlete. So our roles are very, very different in different sports. As a cut technician, you work as a supervisor and also as a commissioner. In mixed martial arts, you'll work either red or blue corner or maybe both. In other words, you're wrapping hands for both. And basically, in terms of your own performance back there, it just depends on the organization. The systems are slightly different for each. In professional boxing, you probably work for a team, in which case you may or may not know the athlete. But again, force contact is key, and being personable and being reasonable and being a good energy in a corner is essential, particularly force contact back of house. Ringside, that center picture. Why is that important? Well, how we set up, where we set up. Basically, is it the best place that we could have set up? Have we access to the ring? I'm going to use the term ring for octagon. Have we access to the ring? Are we enclosed or encased in a group of people where we don't have direct access to the ring? Will the coach get up there before me? How much time is it going to take me to get in there? Is this the place that I'm sitting in? Is it hygienic? Can I put my cut kit here? Is it protected? Now, if you look at center picture, this would be a typical team for most of the cut people that were taught through these systems in the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation. And the reason you put your cut kit there is to make sure that it's safe. If you're working in professional sports or other sports, and even if you were working in amateur sports and you left your kit on the floor, it's more susceptible to being kicked over, knocked over. And on the floor is not really a good place for it anyway, because you have to reach down for it. Handy access, in other words, access to it is key to that. So we have certain systems that we employ or that we expect cut people to carry out certain tasks, orientated skills for ringside. We expect them to carry out. And then last but not least, this is the area that we're seeing in. So in terms of performances, okay, treating cuts, treating lacerations. We don't treat cuts, we treat laceration. Cuts are caused by sharp instruments, knives, etc. But again, just for the hell of it, I'm going to stick to the word laceration, because just to get it straight in your head, treating lacerations is a very, very small part of our role. That's the polished version. That's up there on the platform. That's where we go out and do our business. But this should be practiced. And therefore, this should be broken down into a systemic uh, process in which you can be evaluated, and also in which you can self-evaluate yourself. Because if you want to call yourself a professional, that doesn't mean putting on a t-shirt and calling yourself a cut person. In my day, nobody taught us. Nobody taught us. It was kept close. It was cloak and dagger. There was very little of it evidence-based. It was passed down from cut person to cut person. Nowadays, we put evidence behind it. We put systems in place which can be used in terms of, again, upping your game, etc., etc. So what we're going to focus on today, far right picture, is corner care. A tool that you can use in terms of being able to self-evaluate or having a peer evaluate you. Or if you want to set up a system with your own team of cut people, this is a gem that you can use. Or if you want to contact me, I can help you with that. There's no problem, because we've designed this internationally for multiple organizations. So again, we're going today, 3 key elements in terms of performance for cut people is back of house, ringside, and corner care. Today, we're going to focus on corner care because we just don't have the time to cover the rest. Okay. Corner care, the actual treatment, the podium. Remember, and I'm going to repeat myself a number of times, that 95% of our work is away from the ring. And again, we're using ring as a common term for octagon, or whether it's boxing ring, it's an MMA ring, whatever. Okay, we're using it as a common term. 95% of our work is away from the ring in terms of back of house again, and ringside, learning the trade, practicing. Now, if you look, we have a number of headings there in terms of key areas that we need to, or task-orientated skills that we need to perform in terms of approach, treatment, cleaning, barrier, and then the last but not least, was it a successful treatment outcome? So in other words, did you stem or stop the flow of blood? So let's start at the top. Position. Is it legit? What does that basically mean? Have you put yourself in a position where you will have to move? Now, I'm just going to use one example because there's a fair bit of information on this to move through. So have I put myself in a position where I can now stay for the entire minute? Well, less than a minute, 50 seconds. Or do I have to move because now I'm in an awkward position? There's no official there. He wants to get into that position. I've took it on them. He or she wants to get into that position. So is my position legit? So in other words, have I put myself in a position, or maybe I put myself in a bad position? In other words, my hands are not in the right place. I'm at an awkward angle. So first thing is position. Second thing then is best possible location to treat. You always need to put your ass on the side of the injury. If you have multiple injuries, that's a whole different ball game. On both sides of the face, that's a whole different ball game. But if there's a single injury, a single laceration, a single nosebleed, whatever it is, so a single nostril nosebleed or whatever it is, you can position yourself on that side or off to one side or off center. Okay. Does the coach have access? Number 3. So if we're blocking the coach, if we have our arms up like so, the coach can't get in, the coach can't give water, as well as that eye contact is broke between the athlete and the coach, well then we're actually breaking down a healthy corner. We're not actually contributing to good energy in the corner, because that relationship between coach and athlete is key. Now if you look at the fighter here being treated, you can see him staring straight across to his coach, and his coach is giving voice to him at that point. So that's just to reiterate my point. In terms of your treatment, contact. So have you made full contact with the injury? Have you made partial contact with the injury? Do you need to move your hand to make sure that you have contact, complete contact with the injury, covering the whole circumference of the wound itself? Sit the fighter down. So part of the treatment is sitting the fighter down. Why do we do that? Why do we get the fighter to sit down? One of the reasons is it's a better control. And then I'm not a big guy, I'm only 5'7", what's that, 168? 1 meter 68. So you have tall, most people are taller than me, so for me it's easier to treat people sitting down. Tools to use. Am I using the appropriate tools? Are they the tools that best suit the injury? And that's something we'll address further on. And again, it's something that's done in the cut course. Handling skills, where I put my hands. Can I treat with my left hand, my right hand? Am I dominant on one side? In which case I need to position my tools on my wrist, on my non-dominant side, so I have access to them with my dominant side. Okay, so it's handling skills is key. And then if the athlete is moving their head, the control of the athlete's head. Effective and efficient treatment. Was my treatment effective and was it efficient? Key. Well, self-explanatory. Cleaning blood spatter. Assessment. Are there other injuries? So when you clean blood spatter away, it gives you the opportunity to look at a much global region of the face and skull. So particularly if there's been heavy contact, if you're walking in a sport where there's elbows and there's kicks, etc., like Muay Thai or MMA, well then skull may be injured. There might be a lot of blood spatter. You clean it away and you find that there's another laceration or there's another injury that you didn't see before. So cleaning blood spatter is key. TV clean. We are obliged at the start of every round. So in other words, when the 1 minute break is up between rounds, that the fighter stands in front of that camera, TV clean. So in other words, clean. It shouldn't look like they've just come out of a butcher shop and they're covered in blood spatter. Why? Because this is entertainment. This is presentation to camera. Presentation to camera. Barrier. Was my barrier convenient? So in other words, convenient means my position on my hand. Was my barrier, in other words, if I put the grease on the back of my hand, or if I have grease in a small container on my wristband, can I access it? Has it been wiped off in the case if it was on the back of my hand? Was it in the best place possible so I had access to it? Maybe I've changed my hand position and now the grease is on the hand that's free. So now I have to take my hand away that was treating and take it away, which breaks contact with the injury itself. So basically it's about the position of where you put the grease. Is it the best place possible? Again, if you change your hand position, you need to have grease either on both hands or one hand or whatever it is. So it's not making it complicated. These are all small glitches that will cost you time when you're in there. And the reason I know this is because I've been doing this for a number of years and I've broken it down into systems where I think it would best benefit you. Okay. Excessive amounts of grease. I could use examples of that in MMA in particular. Referees, officials don't like to see excessive amounts of grease, and neither is it allowed in boxing, but for some reason or other, sometimes you will see referees turning the other way when there's an excessive amount of grease applied to a boxer's face, and sometimes not. Successful treatment outcome. Did I stop or stem the flow of blood? So what does that basically mean? If I've treated somebody, well then when I sit back down in the corner, I'm looking at the clock to see if I've given that athlete the best opportunity possible. In other words, in terms of visual, say if the laceration was over the eye, have I completely stopped the flow of blood? In other words, can that athlete see? So was my treatment outcome successful? Now I'll look at the clock to see how long that treatment worked. Now maybe the athlete walks out, you've completely stopped the flow of blood. The athlete walks out into center, takes heavy contact and it starts to bleed again. It's not your fault. You've done your job. Okay, you've done your job. It's not your fault. So basically, there are key elements to evaluating yourself. I'm going to show you how to do it on the next page. So how to assess performance. This is what it's all about. This is your bread and butter. So if we're looking at our approach, you'll see that you have 3 key areas you're assessed on, and there's a score underneath each one, which will then be totaled over in this area over here. Okay, so that's basically the system the whole way through. For treatment, there are 5. For cleaning, blood spatter, assess, TV clean, and again, in terms of being able to apply a barrier, you have again 5 scoring points. And then last one, treatment outcome, stop, stem, or maintain. I'll tell you what that is now in a second. Okay, so your approach. For each of these, you get a score, as I've just mentioned. So your position, again, I'll reiterate it. Was your position good? Was it good? Okay, so in other words, is it legit? Do I have to move? In which case, if I have to move, I may have to break contact with the injury. So did I put myself in the best position which crosses over into location? Am I on the best or in the best position possible to treat the injury? Am I in the best possible position to treat the injury? And keeping it simple, always place yourself on the side of the injury. Did I give the coach access? Now, all of them carry points. And just to reiterate what I said on the previous slide, again, when it comes into treatment, it's contact with the injured area, prioritizing those injuries. So if you have multiple injuries, you need to prioritize which one. Okay, this is the one that I need to take care of business with the most, because if you have multiple, I'm not saying you don't treat them. What I'm trying to say is you need to prioritize the ones that are going to cause the athlete the most difficulty in terms of vision or whatever it is. Okay, in terms of vision. So prioritize an injury. The tools that you use. Am I using tools that I have to hold in place? Example, and one of the reasons I'm not a fan of using swabs, there are now natural products that actually stick to the wound or injury, and when you remove them, they leave the blood clot behind, the likes of Quick Aid. There are some fantastic tools out there. It'll just stick to the injury. You don't have to hold it in place. If you have multiple injuries where you need to use swabs, you have to hold them all in place, which kind of jams up your hands. Okay, but if you're using the likes of Quick Aid, it will stick to the injury. Obviously, pressure is best. I can't reiterate that enough. Using compression. Okay, compression is a key tool to use as a cut person. Your handling skills. Were my hands ass about elbow? Am I blocking the coach from gaining access? And then finally, effective and efficient. So in terms of cleaning, again, assess. Okay, what you're doing when you are cleaning blood away is you're assessing the injury. In terms of TV clean, again, is the athlete presentable for camera at the start of the next round? Okay, barrier, convenient. Did I put the grease on either hand? Did I put it in the right place? Did I put it in a place where I couldn't access it because I was using that hand? And so I had to take my hand away from the treatment to actually access the grease to then apply it at the end of the break. In other words, seconds away. Key areas in terms of greasing. What's the key areas? The key area to grease is the one that's been injured. I see sometimes cut people spending far too much time putting grease on other parts of the face and not on the place that counts the most, which is the one that's just been injured. That's number one. Not number two, number three, it's number one. Okay. So again, key areas. Appropriate. Was my barrier appropriate? Did I use excessive or too little? Appropriate. So in terms of using grease, again, there's rules and regulations to the use of the grease. So again, did I use too much or too little? Excessive amounts of grease or too little, because you're breaking the rules. Some sports are more strict than others. Again, using MMA as one of those sports. MMA doesn't permit the use of excessive amounts of grease. Treatment outcome. Did I stop, stem, or maintain? Now, our job is to stop the flow of blood, which is hemostasis, balance. We've created balance again in the body. We've stopped the blood. The athlete can now see or perform better because we've stopped the blood. Sometimes you may have an injury like a nosebleed, a heavy nosebleed, and they're a nightmare. And so your objective, although you've tried to stop it, you've reduced it to a trickle in comparison to what it was. Does that mean your treatment was a failure? No, it doesn't. It means it was a success. You done well. Stop, stem. Obviously, stopping it completely is gold. Stemming it, again, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we're judged. People don't understand the game. They come in and they think it's absolute. It has to be just stop. If it's not stop, you haven't done your job completely right. That's not accurate. It's not completely accurate. Yes, we want to stop the blood, but sometimes you get heavy bleeds, particularly nosebleeds. They're a nightmare because there's dense blood supply in the nose, and all you can do is your best. All you can do is your best. Maintenance. That's all we do is maintenance. What we do is interventions. We go in something like in the field in combat. Okay, we're not there. It's not like we're sitting in a clinical room where we're going to go, where the athlete's going to get sutured, and we have all the time in the world, and we can place our treatment on the injury and just sit there and count it. It doesn't matter about the clock or time or anything like that. And then once we've stopped the flow of blood over whatever amount of time that is, then the athlete may get sutures or not or whatever, you know. And we're not in a clinical setting. We're in an environment which is hostile at the best of times because we can't control the athlete, or you can't completely control the athlete, and you can't completely control the coaches. You can ask them to play ball with you through non-verbal cues and body position, but it's out of your control. You also may have a person who is their first time on the job using a camera, and they're sticking the camera right over your shoulder and they're blocking your access, in which case you have to use your body to protect yourself, okay, or to protect the area that you want to treat in. So there's a number of things there. Okay, and so breaking down in terms of peer evaluation, we have this for 3 key areas: back of house, ringside, and then this one here is just for treatment only. So I'm going to show you a video and then we're going to break it down after. Okay? So, systemic scoring system. First, we're going to look at contact. So if you can see, I've met the athlete coming from the side at an angle, which is imperative if you are treating nose or mouth bleeds. It's imperative. And again, it's something we cover on the Cutman course, the Cutwoman course. So top one there, on contact, I came in from the right angle. So that's good. Okay, so in terms of points, well, let's see the rest of it. If you look at the picture below, you'll see that the athlete has changed position and now put his arms up on top of the octagon fence. Okay, so I've lost control here, so that's a bad position for me to be in. So in terms of contact, at this point, what I should have done was circled around the athlete, put my arm underneath and rounded them from left to right so that they're in the position with their back to the cage, so I can sit them on the stool. That would have been better. So in terms of contact, my initial contact was good, but then after that, you can only control the controllables. And what the athlete does sometimes you cannot control, are the coaches, or sometimes overzealous cameramen. And if there's no overzealous cameramen, sometimes overzealous coaches who just push you around. So you gotta hold your ground. But I could have circled around, took my hand away for a second, put my hand under and rotated the athlete from left to right and sat them on the stool. I didn't do that. So in terms of contact, I would give myself half marks. Now, in terms of prioritizing treatments, okay, so I'd use nasal wool in both nostrils. It's a fantastic material. So I didn't really have to hold my hands or cup the nose, although it is a better form of treatment. But when you have something like this, where you have multiple injuries, okay, the most important thing is being able to treat them all. Now, that's not being an egomaniac. It's being a proficient professional. So in other words, it's practice. You've done it before. And believe it or not, you could do all of that with one hand. So in terms of prioritizing injury, I think you'll all agree, or maybe you won't, but I'm going to ask you the question: which one of all of these is the most important? The hematoma over the eye, the nosebleed, or the mouth bleed? Which one is the most important? So in terms of prioritizing injuries, which one is the most important? Now you can see me looking at the eye. I lifted the hand back and I'm having a look at the eye, so I acknowledge the eye. But then, as I swept down, because I have control of the nose, I'm trying to stop the bleeding in the nose, I'm looking down at the mouth and I see a nasty laceration in the mouth. And for some reason, at that point, something clicked and all my focus was all about the mouth and I totally disregarded the eye. So again, which one is priority? Which one? Write that down on a piece of paper or take note. Which one is the most important? So in terms of prioritizing injuries, I would give myself 0 for that. Although there were 3 key elements in it. Okay, mouth bleed, nose, and the eye. I looked after 2 and I left out 1. So we're prioritizing which one is the most important. So let's move on to the tools that we're using. So have a look up here at this picture. I'm using nasal wool, and the beautiful thing about using nasal wool is that it's an alginate. It expands inside the nasal cavity. So when it makes contact with blood, its absorption, it can absorb up to 100 times its own body weight. And then it releases calcium ions, but it expands. So I didn't really have to hold my hand here like so. Either ways, is it a better tool to use? Now, all I want you to do is think about this. If I was using swabs, and those two swabs were coming out of either nostril, okay, of either nostril, would the coach have been able to remove that gum shield? Granted, I could spread the two swabs, in other words, the two sticks, and given the coach that access, but which tools are best? So did I really need to use swabs? No, the tools that I'm using are much better for the injury that was presented to me in terms of the nasal wall. And again, I didn't really have to hold my hand up here. I could have freed it up. So in terms of tools, yep, I'll give myself full marks on that one. So what's the score? How do we score this? For each of these, you give yourself 7.15. Now, that probably sounds complicated, but in total, when we're assessing cut men and cut women, basically there are 14 points that we look at, whether it's in back of house, whether it's ringside, or whether it's field of play in terms of being in the ring and treating, okay, and treating. So it's very important to remember that when you're giving yourself marks, that you have to be honest with yourself about the whole thing. Was that the best thing I could have done? But in terms of marks, like I said to you, the tools I use, I give full marks. Now, handling skills are key. The control of the athlete. Did I handle the athlete well here? No, I didn't. My approach was good, but I didn't handle the athlete well here. Now, have a look at this position here. You can see it in this photograph up this way. In terms of handling, I have control of the fighter's head, so I can administer the treatment. That's no problem. But have a look at the position of the fighter's arms. Now, I have mentioned in previous webinars, the best position to treat a fighter is sitting down. Sitting down. That's the best position to treat a fighter, is sitting down. The reason for that is because your heart rate recovers faster. Now, we've done this in terms of research in boxing, in athletic boxing, and we have found categorically that by sitting down, your heartbeat reduces more than standing up. Now, forgive me, I forget the exact amount, but reduces in terms of percentages, but it does reduce. And anything in terms of getting the athlete to relax, reducing the heart rate, which then reduces the blood pressure because the athlete is recovering sitting down, reduces the pressure on the blood vessel wall as the heart beats, because it has to beat fewer times when you're in a resting state or in a recovering state, rather than being active when you're fighting. Okay, so it reduces the pressure on the blood vessel walls. Now, why is that important? Well, basically, you're trying to treat an injury and you're trying to plug holes in blood vessels. And if there's less pressure on those blood vessels, there's a greater chance that you'll have a positive treatment outcome. That's why. Now, the arms overhead, is that a good idea? Do you remember your old football coach used to always say, recover with your arms over your head? Was that the best way to recover? Is it the best way to recover? The answer to that is no. When your arms are up like so, it means that your heart has to pump it, or has to beat a little bit harder to get the blood, to pump the blood up over your head. So in terms of my handling, 50-50. I had control of the head. I met the athlete full on, but I lost control here, and I didn't take note that the arms were up. And again, every little thing that comes together in terms of getting the athlete's arms down, getting the athlete to sit, you have better control over the athlete, you've reduced their heart rate, so the potential to have a positive treatment outcome, in other words, stemming or stopping the flow of blood, is greater. Okay, so handling 50-50. Okay, 50-50, so I'll give myself half marks there. So in terms of effective and efficient, this is the athlete after the treatment. And you can still see there's a trickle of blood coming down, and you can see across the mouth. There's some blood, but not as much as previous. But I totally missed the eye. Totally missed the eye, the hematoma. So again, which one is the most important? And the answer is the eye. If the hematoma closes the eye, the fight's over. End off. The fight's over. So for me, as a professional, I go back, I look at the tapes, and if you don't have tapes, you can ask one of your mates to use the mobile phone, your mobile phone or their mobile phone, to film you when you're in there treating. Okay, and that way you can break it down piece by piece. So in terms of marks, on contact, half marks, priorities, prioritizing injury, 0. Tools, effective. Yes, I did use effective tools. But what I didn't do was apply my bag of voice, which I could have done, down the back of my hand just up here. Look, the top right, just this picture here. I could have placed the bag of voice down here and over the eye while I compressed the nose. And that would have left one hand free to treat the mouth. Okay, that's simple. Now, rather than using an end swell, which I would have had to hold into place, and swabs, I would have had to use both my hands to hold the end swell and swabs, the swabs in both nostrils and the end swell over the eye. I would have had to use both hands. I would prefer if one of my hands were free. And in this case, what I could have done was I had my nasal wall in both nostrils. I had a piece of quick aid which sticks or adheres to blood, but when you remove it, it leaves the blood clot. I could have left that and did in the inside of the mouth, and then place the ice bag down the back of the hand and just cup the hand back toward the head. Okay, I could have done that, but I didn't. So that's a personal note to self. So if you are going to call yourself a cut person, be the best that you can. And analysing your work is only one step toward your goal. In summary, you'll see a number of headings just on this in the center of the page. The 2 P's, positive and productive. Again, if I go beating myself up every time I make a mistake, how productive is that? 0. In terms of enhancing my performance, how productive is that? Is 0. There are things that you do right, and there's things that you do that aren't so good, in which case, if you go back and you break it down systematically, you can see where your weaknesses are, or you could see where you could make a random mistake. And personal note, let's not do that again. And you have now evidence. Now, you're saying to yourself, I don't have the benefit of TV. Okay, what's wrong with somebody filming you with a mobile phone? Okay, what's wrong with that? And even in small shows now, the majority of the times they film. Now, the position may not be good, but what you can do is ask your pals with a mobile phone, is every time I get in there, will you just ask them, can they take video footage of you working? And if you're not too sure about what you're doing, please send it to me and I will help you to the best of my ability. At least point out key points that you can work on. Controllable aspects, prep and performance. Okay, controllable aspects is me preparing for that by practicing, reviewing the tapes, going back to the drawing board and saying, could I have done that better? I know I could have. And every time I go out there to perform, I'll break down each part of what I do. Again, if I don't have video footage of it, well, what I'll do, or if I don't have, a film company there taking film of this, what I'll basically do is ask a pal to video me working. And it doesn't matter if it's the smallest show in the back end of nowhere, I will do it. Why? Because I want to be the best I possibly can. What's uncontrollable aspects is the athlete and the coach, or external stresses like crowd, camera, etc., etc. If you start feeding into that, it may make you anxious rather than focusing on your role. You have enough to do. Don't think about that crap. Development, new patterns of thinking is key. You need to develop new patterns of thinking. Now, you may work with people who will laugh at you because you're wearing gloves. And I'll use boxing as an example of that because I've gotten her in the neck. In the early days when I started to wear gloves, people were slagging me off. What are you doing that for? Because it's not the cultural norm. Now you'll see more and more cut men cut women starting to use gloves in professional boxing corners. But it's still not mandatory. It's still not mandatory in other sports either. It should be mandatory. It makes complete sense. Here we are in the middle of COVID-19. We're washing our hands like a crazy person. You're doing all of that, but when you're handling blood, where there's a possibility, it's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. So we need to get over that and just get on with it and evolve. Okay. Develop new patterns of thinking. So if you're around people who are negative, 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 find people who will benefit you in terms of enabling you to get better at your job rather than pulling you down. So if you're with a team that doesn't appreciate your work, go somewhere else. Otherwise, you'll be just beating your head off a brick wall, and the only person that's going to get the headache is you. Entitlement. You are not entitled to anything. We are judged on our performances. A lot of people watching that first time round probably wouldn't have got the eye. Okay, probably wouldn't have got the eye. They probably would have thought I've done a good job with the nose and the mouth. Look, you stemmed or stopped the flow of blood in the nose and the mouth, but my priority was the eye. I missed the eye. I seen that. So in terms of entitlement, if your employers look at that tape and they say to themselves, you know what, it's a key element, let's try that other kid next week. They've been asking us or dogging us for a while to get on the show. Let's try that kid. Whose fault is that? It's nobody's fault. Or else you may have a good employer that knows that you are solid as a rock and it was just one of those things on one day. Okay, it was a mistake that was made on one day. In which case, you'll be invited back. But you are entitled to nothing. Just because I work for the UFC, I don't take it for granted I will get a call for the next show or the show after that. That's not the case. Anybody that's been involved in professional sport knows that you're king for one day or queen for one day. That's it. You do your job, you leave. If they call you again, fantastic. Just let your work be your voice, as Adam Giglio always said to me. Okay, another UFC Cutman, fantastic guy. Dwelling. Poor performances or past successes. Which one is better? Do I want to look at poor performances or past successes? Well, I can look at both, but I need to do it constructively. What's good for if we get into a rut where we've made a mistake and we're thinking to ourselves, oh my God, how did I miss that? How did I make that mistake? You need to remind yourself of all the past experiences that have been successful, okay, rather than the negative. And you know then your own worth. You know that, you know what, it was a bad day at the office. I throw my hands up. Here they are here. Okay. So dwelling on stuff doesn't really help, but in terms of confidence boosting, looking at your past successes are definitely something that you should always do in terms of giving you that little boost. And don't compare yourself with anybody. You are you, that's it, just you. Outcome or process. The outcome in terms of our treatment is 5% of our task. The process is 95% of our journey. So what do you want to focus on? Now, the outcome is a result of practice, okay? And being open to learning. The process is exactly that. Just practice, exposure, experience in sport, life experience. You can bring that all to the table. That's the process of getting there and then being able to deliver good treatments to athletes. The task is back of house, being able to do our job in the back of house, ringside, and then basically in the ring itself treating. Okay, that's the task end of things. But how do I become good at wrapping hands? How do I know where is best to set up when I'm actually working in corners? Where's the best place? Where's the best visibility? Is it hygienic? Is there water on the floor? Is there bloody matter all over the place? How can I overcome all those little obstacles and make my thing better? How can I make it better? Make it as hygienically. How, when I'm in there treating, how can I make that better? Do I have a system that I can follow and go back in? That's all part of your journey. Okay, that's the process. The task itself is the polished bit, the last piece that you see on the camera where you get in there, treat the injury, and you've either stemmed or stopped the flow of blood. Okay. Last but not least, my YouTube page, Minute Medicine Man. I will put those videos up, the webinars, for 24 hours only, and then I will take them down. However, if you do want to watch them again, you can go to my website, which is www.minutemedicineman.com, and you will find it. I've only got one page website under services, where you'll find all those videotapes just there, or courses if you want to buy into a course or you want to take part in a course physically. The online version, again, we had to stop filming because of COVID-19, unfortunately, but we will have the hand wrapping section, which is very comprehensive, ready by next month. That will be out there by next month. So again, you can see all those bits and pieces, from newsletters, blogs to webinars that I've done. Again, if you want to go to my Facebook page, it's Cutman Minute Medicine Man, and on Instagram it's Minute Medicine Man. Either way, you can catch up on all the stuff that I'm doing out there at the moment, working in various sports. And again, if you want to contact me by email, just do so on minutemedicineman@gmail.com, and I will respond. If it takes me a day or two, I'll always get back to you. Look, I'm always open, because when I was entering into the game, when I was coming into the game, nobody shared with me. And the only way we can get better, the only way we can increase the amount of athlete safety in corner care, for corner care, back of house, the whole ball of wax, is by constantly upping our game, using evidence-based first aid fundamentals, but also learning how to deal with situations. And the only way we can do that is if we all help each other. That's the only way we can do it. Sharing is the way forward. I'm a big fan. Muhammad Ali, me, we. And what he meant by that, without the platform, without the people, without my trainers, without all of that, I would be nothing. And same goes for this. I'm not saying I'm Muhammad Ali for a second. What I'm trying to say is that when we share, we cover more ground, we get better, we learn stuff, you get new ideas, and it ups your game and performance. And that's what all of this is about, is basically upping your game and performance. Because who benefits? The combat sport athlete that sits in the corner, the men and women that sit in those corners, that give their mind, body and soul, and they deserve it the most. And that's what we're there for. Not for any other reason, for ego, for blah, 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 bling, bling, bling. The big shows, the cameras, that's great, but you're not there for that. You're not there to pose. Look at this face. Do you think this face would get a photo shoot? You kidding me? So basically, all I'm trying to say to you is turn up and do the job that you're there to do, rather than posing for pictures or looking good on camera. Okay, get on with the job and do the best possible job you can for the combat sport athlete, because they're the most important person. Until next time, keep an eye on the pages. Thank you for watching.